Eyes on Longmont, offering a diversity of topics about our community that will inform and entertain you. We invite you to sit back and enjoy this edition of Eyes on Longmont.
Shetland's just a feature for everybody to ad lib, and we can cut what we don't need. Do you want to start it, Matt, or do you want me to start?
No,
Okay,
I
go ahead.
My name is James Barela. I got interested in music really very young. My father's uncle had a guitar, and I loved to listen to him play guitar. But my grandmother was also a really fantastic singer, and my uncle was a singer, and I had violinists in my family, and so I was always very interested in music, and I had always the ear out to hear anything. Even as early as, when I was 3, 4, 5 years old, and my parents would take me to Shakey's Pizza, where they had a little Dixieland jazz band, and I just would throw the tantrum because I didn't want to leave. I wanted to listen to the music. Who cares about the pizza and the fried chicken? So I was very much interested from a very young age. wasn't so much I like to listen to lyrics and then learn the lyrics. I wanted to learn what was the drummer doing, what was the guitar player doing. I heard all of the instrumental stuff, and I really was just fascinated like how people could do all this together. I started playing trumpet when I was about 9 years old, and initially I wanted to play violin. There was a lot of violinists in my family on both my mother and father's side. My father didn't have a great experience in his violin education, and so he didn't really want me to get involved with violin. And so we did like a little testing at school, where they come in. The symphony players actually came in and tested us all out, and they said, "You'd be a great trombone player. You're a tall kid, and your long arms would be awesome." But I heard the trumpet player was playing some excerpts and everything, and I said, I think that's what I wanted to do. And luckily my dad was cool with that. So we went down. We got me a trumpet, and from that moment on, I just really took well to music and was able to hear the tunes kind of before we played them. I didn't have any formal education really before that, but I listened to so much music that I kind of understood when I saw it on a page. I recognized what I was supposed to play when I was playing with others. I think it was about the time of junior high that I started playing guitar and really started putting together my own bands and doing different things, really wanting to express myself a little bit more artistically. And going into high school, I had a director who very much encouraged that. And I think I knew by the time I was out of my 10th grade year that this is exactly what I'm going to do, and nothing else is gonna change that. I went from high school, wasn't planning on going to college. I thought I knew kind of everything I needed to know, and I think like most 17 or 18-year-olds think they know everything. But I was lucky enough to get a call from the band director at a community college up near Yellowstone, Wyoming, a place called Powell, Wyoming, and they had a resident jazz great who had retired to that area from New York City. His name was Ronnie Bedford, and so they convinced me to go up there and pursue jazz and play some more. And I think the big carrot on the end of the line was, you can play with Ronnie. And I was like, well, then I'm there, I'm going. And so from that point on, I just went to college and decided that that would be a good place for me to get my start.
So did you like the samba on the bridge?
Yeah, that's what threw me off. All of a sudden it came in, I screwed up the chord on that.
But we're still okay with that? Or?
Yeah, why don't you do it? I'll keep the straight time. You double time it. I think
Right,
because otherwise we're not. I wasn't in sync with you.
Totally
I can't
fine.
remember where it was.
Let's trade off on the A sections.
Yeah,
So-
I think that would be better.
That way, so like
We
you
can
do,
relax
like
it.
I can do the first, you can do the first, and then we trade, and then we'll do the bridge together, and then we'll do the last A section together.
Okay,
I'm saying something.
all right.
You want to do the first one?
I'll start, yeah.
Okay, cool.
We'll do Stan
You
Getz
do the
style.
gets thing,
I'll
man.
do the Getz, man.
Get your gets.
Get your
Let's
Getz on.
let's do a take two.
Okay, so they're doing 8 intro, 8 for intro. Is that what we did?
Yeah.
Okay.
going into college, like I'd gone up to Northwest College in Northwest Wyoming, and it was a great experience. It was only a 2-year school, and I really only planned on staying there for 1 year, but it was such a fantastic experience working with the faculty there, and made a lot of friends, and I was playing with a lot of great musicians, including Ronnie Bedford, who was a jazz legend. And after that, I figured, okay, this will be enough college for me, and I'm just going to go and be a pro now. And what was interesting, I met pretty much the godfather of jazz education, the guy who kind of codified jazz education. His name is Rich Madison. He was a monster jazz euphonium player, and he basically wrote the books on how you teach jazz in schools. And he said to me, I really think you're terrific. I think you're great. You'd fit perfect in my program at University of North Florida. And I said, Florida? That sounds amazing. I'd love to go to Florida. So I had kind of auditioned for him. He was set to get me there, and unfortunately he had passed away. And so none of that was really saved, none of it really materialized. So I wasn't really sure what I was going to do, and my friend, person who I'd been listening to and kind of following around a little bit, like a groupie, was Bob Montgomery. He was a Denver-based jazz trumpet player and educator, and he had called me up kind of out of the blue and said, hey, I heard you're kind of maybe looking to go to a school or going into college. And would you like to come down and audition to go to Lamont School of Music at the University of Denver? And I have known of this school. It's a private school, and it's a conservatory as part of that school. And I thought, I don't know if I can afford that. That's pretty big prize ticket. He said, well, just come down and audition, let's see how it goes. What do I need to do? He goes, well, just prepare a couple classical pieces and show up and play, and we'll see how it goes. So I showed up, and I didn't really play the classical European style of trumpet very well. I could play the notes, I could play the rhythms, but I had no clue about the style, about the sound, the nuances, everything about it. So I played those first, and I was playing for one of the world's best trumpet players in Joe Doxey. And I'm playing for the director of admissions, and I'm playing for Bob Montgomery there. And I played those pieces, and when I was done, I was like, there's no way I'm coming to this school. And I kind of put my trumpet down, and they're kind of looking around at each other. Well, what's next? And Bob said, well, James, he goes, you're a jazz player. He goes, how about playing some jazz for us? Bob pulled up what was called the Jamie Aebersold CD, and he put it on the sound system, and we played Miles Davis 4, we played Footprints, and we played a Rhythm Changes tune. Now that was in my pocket. That's what I'd been working on for years, and what I knew best. And I played those 3 tunes like I wrote them, like I knew exactly how they should be played. And so when we were done, I felt a lot better, and I think the confidence showed. And Joe Doxey, he said, he goes, honestly, he goes, your Haydn trumpet concerto, he goes, we got to work on that. He goes, but the way that you played the jazz, he goes, I'll never understand how guys play that and play it so well. And he immediately was like, oh, wow, such a cool guy. And so they brought me there. In the middle of the summer, I received almost a full ride scholarship to go to school that late in the year. So I went there, I finished my bachelor's degree in trumpet performance, and got a lot better at the European style of trumpet playing through my work with Joe, which was incredible. And I also studied with Dan Kuhn, who was a great symphonic trumpet player there as well. And I had all these amazing opportunities to work with guest artists and amazing faculty there. I had the opportunity to play in the Lamont Symphony Orchestra, and the wind ensemble, jazz ensembles, the combos, all of that. And David Amram came and hung out for a year, and I got to hang out with David Amram for a whole year, a living legend. David Amram and Byron Stripling came in, a great trumpet player, and You know, I got to spend a week with him, and just all these experiences that I'd never had before were just in my first year. And so I loved it there. The experience was amazing. And I decided I wanted to go back for my master's. I wanted more of that. So I stayed and continued with my master's degree there, and I did that in composition. It was really a fantastic experience. And what's kind of crazy to me to think is that I didn't really envision myself in college. I didn't envision myself being a college person. I just wanted to go play. And wherever that road was going to take me, it was going to take me. But going into college, I thought, this is a great experience. What an amazing time I had. I learned so much, and I wouldn't mind, you know, going and finding a college to work in myself. And that kind of like, my direction kind of changed a little bit. And I thought, I'll look for a college gig. And then eventually I was playing so much professionally, I had no time to look for a college gig. So. I was influenced by a lot of trumpet players, both professional, non-professional, just colleagues, you know, fellow students. Early on, though, we were fortunate enough to watch Johnny Carson every night and see Doc Severinsen, and I really loved the way that Doc Severinsen played. And when I got into jazz because I loved hearing Miles Davis play, and I loved hearing Freddie Hubbard play. When I was a kid, I grew up kind of in a military town, and one of the guys that lived next door to us was a military guy and loved jazz. And when I told him I was playing trumpet and everything, he said, "Have you heard Freddie Hubbard?" I'm like, no, of course not. And he had played me some things off Freddie Hubbard album, and I was just fascinated by Freddie Hubbard. Yeah, and so I loved listening to Miles and Freddie Hubbard, and I loved listening to Doc Severinsen. But at the same time, this was, early 1980s. Wynton Marsalis had really come onto the scene. He burst onto the scene as a great classical and jazz player, and winning Grammys in both. And he was, of course, on TV a lot. So I got to see and hear a lot of Wynton, and that really was very inspirational for me to play and to have that person as this larger-than-life superstar kind of figure. It's like, if I could just be kind of maybe in that same ballpark of good as he is, maybe this will work for me. And so Wynton was a huge influence as well early on. And then it just grew from there. And now I can't listen to enough trumpet players. I'm constantly looking for more and more and more to listen to, really on a daily basis. spent a lot of years in Las Vegas playing. It was almost by accident that I got there. I got to Vegas because my girlfriend at the time, who was now my wife, she had already moved to Las Vegas, and she said, hey, this seems like a pretty cool place. There's a lot of trumpet players, and weather is great, and it's not really expensive. So I moved to Las Vegas, and I think I was there 2 weeks, and I'd already gotten into 2 different bands and was auditioning to do my first show. The experience was really fantastic because I'd graduated college and with a master's degree, and went to Las Vegas, and I had all this experience. I'd already played with a lot of professional players, and my professional career was already underway, but it wasn't consistent. It wasn't every single night, every single day, which is really what I wanted it to be. And when I went to Las Vegas, and this was in the late 1990s, that's what it became. It became, you're playing every day, and maybe it's a show, you're doing the same show, but I was playing with several, half a dozen, 8 to 10 bands all the time, playing in a show 6 days a week, and just nonstop playing, which was really what I wanted to do. For example, like my Saturdays in Las Vegas, I woke up and I'd be at the Venetian by 10 o'clock because we were on at 10 o'clock in the morning, and we played from 10 to 2, and it was kind of a light jazz, and that would kind of turn into a jump swing band. And then in the afternoon, I'd go to Caesars and play at the pool, but we did jazz there. And then at night, I'd go do my show gig, and that was usually at the Bellagio during this time. And then at 1 o'clock in the morning, I would head over to another casino where the salsa group would start, and that would end about 3:30. So my day on Saturdays went from 10 a.m. to 3:30, and it was all playing, and it was 4 completely different groups, and it couldn't have been more fun, more exciting. Just the musical growth and the chance to be with all the different musicians and different experiences was worth probably 2,000 college degrees. One, two. That's nice. I'm just a gigolo, and everywhere I go, people know the part I'm playing. Paid for every dance, selling each romance. What are they saying? 'Cause there will come a day when youth will pass away. What would they say about me? When the end comes, I know they'll see just a gigolo. Life goes on without me. All this playing has consequences, too much of a good thing then becomes a bad thing. When you're young, I think you feel impervious to pain and to injury. And unfortunately, it did catch up to me playing hundreds, 500, 600, 700 gigs a year, because I was doubling, tripling, on Saturdays, quadrupling all the time. And so it did have ill effects. And while I was on a tour, the East Coast, and this was in late 2001, I had noticed that I was missing notes that I never really missed before. It was interesting because I thought to myself, I just need to practice more. I need to just iron this out, and whatever the case may be. So I started practicing a little bit more, which was probably the worst thing I could have done. I needed to stop playing. But we were on tour, and the tour lasted 5 to 6 weeks. By the time we got back to Vegas, I couldn't even make the first note you learn as a trumpet player. I couldn't even play it. And the area, my upper lip, center upper lip, began to swell up. Even if I would touch it for a minute, it'd swell up, and my lip wouldn't vibrate. So I couldn't play. I didn't know what the issue was. So I stopped and decided I was going to take some rest and do some things. But after a few months of rest, it wasn't really returning at all, and other factors were creeping in, like my jaw would bite down and close, and I began searching for doctors, for people who would understand what I was talking about and see if they could perhaps, help me out. And nobody had a clue what I was talking about. Nobody understood anything about this. So I was kind of in a limbo, in a place that I really didn't know what I was going to do. And I needed to find a job because I needed to continue to make money. And I thought I'll go be a school teacher. And when I did my interviews to be a band teacher, to be a band director, and what they told me it was going to pay, that was my first realization that teachers don't make enough money. They told me this is what we pay, and I said there's just no way I'm gonna do that.
All of the time, even on the beat, I said, baby, mama, sugar, darling, I ain't got nobody. I said nobody. I got nobody. I said no one. Nobody. Not even my mama. Not my grandma. I got nobody. I got nobody. I said no one. I got nobody. I said nobody. Nobody cares for me. Ba ba da ba 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 deep doo.
And that is the absolute end of my voice. Shit, I got nothing left that whole nobody. I found myself in kind of a precarious position, not knowing what was wrong with me medically and not being able to make money. And I found on the internet excerpt from a book called Broken Embouchures by Lucinda Lewis, French hornist. And I said, I need to find this person. And I did, found phone numbers, and I called her up and we talked for a little bit. And I said, please send me your book. So she sent me her book, and I opened up to the chapter that was about torn muscle. And I read that chapter like I wrote it, because it was exactly everything that was going on with me. So I called her back and I said, I've definitely torn the muscle. Just by reading in your book, this seems like this is what it has done. And she said, well, there is a doctor in Canada who has a little bit of experience with this. And he's the doctor for the Toronto Maple Leafs, the hockey team. So give him a call. I gave him a call. Our health insurance meant nothing up there. So he told me how much it was going to cost. And I said, now I need to really find a job. So I applied for about 250 jobs, everything from a job retail in the mall, selling clothes or selling shoes, to McDonald's. I couldn't get a job to save my life. I was either way too qualified, or they'd look at me and said, well, you've never sold shoes before. How are you going to do this? And I'm like, so I ended up working at Walmart. And I worked at Walmart for several months, saved enough money to have this procedure done. And I went up to Canada, and they cut open my lip and fixed it. And then I began the long process of rehabbing it to get where I could play again. The EVI is an acronym, and it's short for electronic valve instrument. And what it is it's what's called a controller, or a MIDI controller. MIDI is a language used in music that allows computers and musical instruments to talk to each other. So it uses the MIDI format, and I'm able to control synthesizers using a trumpet-like device. This device, it's not a trumpet. It doesn't utilize the lip and the muscles the same way, but it does utilize the wind energy to activate the sounds. And everything else that you have to do from that point on is essentially a command. You're commanding a computer to do certain things. And I was very hesitant about this, but one of the players on the last band that I was in, he suggested that, well, since I got my surgery and I'm going to be down for a while, why don't I try playing one of these? And I think my exact words were, his name was Chris. Chris, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. Why would I ever want to do that? I'm a trumpet player. And he said, no, you really should check this out. So he had arranged for me to come to a recording session in LA with him. And it consisted of one guy using the EVI, electronic valve instrument, and two other people using what are called the EWI or EWI, and those are electronic wind instruments, and they're kind of modeled after woodwind instruments, and they were laying down the entire soundtrack for a movie. My first thought was, dollar signs, wait a second, this looks like they get paid pretty good, and I could probably do that. The second thought was, how am I going to learn the technology? Because I've never really invested much time or thought into this kind of MIDI technology. So I got into it from the help of a really good friend of mine who had an old analog early version of this instrument. The instrument was invented by Niles Steiner, a great musician, genius inventor. He invented this because as a trumpet player, he wanted to control synthesizers, but he couldn't play piano, and piano was the main controlling device for synthesizers. So my friend had an old analog version, which he let me use so that I could learn how to kind of play this thing. Simultaneously, I contacted Niles Steiner, who lives in Utah, and I kind of told him my situation, and I said, I need one of these, I think, because I don't know if this surgery is going to work. I don't know how this is going to happen, and I need to have something that I can continue to do music with, So he invited me to his home, and I went to his home, and we spent about 2-3 hours in his basement, which was really like a mad scientist's laboratory. It was amazing. And he played it for me, and watching him play, I had that same feeling of when I watched Wynton or Doc Severinsen. I thought, if I can even get close to being as good as that guy, I can make this work, And I said, well, I need one of these. As a matter of fact, I think I need 2 of them. And so he says, okay, I'll call you in about 6 months. It's going to take me that long. I'm like, okay. And I gave him the money, left, and 6-7 months later, what's your address? And there they were. And by that time, I'd been practicing on this analog version that my friend Bob Montgomery, who was also my college professor, pretty much the guy that kept me in college and brought me to Denver to go to school, he had lent me this analog version. So by the time I got mine, I'd been practicing on this for 7-8 hours a day. And so I was very fluid in the instrument itself. I just needed to learn the technology aspect of it because it was very foreign to me. So that's how I got into EVI.
Down, give him the tempo, James.
The instrument by itself makes no sound. It's simply a controller. It's controlling computers and telling computers that have the information stored in it what to do, how to do it, what to sound like. So you need the instrument itself, and there's a lot of people that make various types of these wind synthesizers. The one that I happened to want to play was a trumpet version of it, which kind of had the trumpet buttons and was kind of played like a trumpet. It was the least popular version because when it came out, trumpet players hated it. However, woodwind players love the woodwind version of it, and so you see them all over the place. However, I wanted to focus on the trumpet version, and you need the instrument itself. You also need some kind of a tone generator, a sound module, a synthesizer. At that time, software synthesis wasn't really what it is today. So we used what are called sound modules. They're basically little hard drives that have all of your sounds, all of your waves, all of this stuff. And you want to get one that has editable features so that you can go in there and really kind of tweak the things that you want to tweak. And so I got one of those. I got a little amplifier, and I had my instrument, and that's all you need to get it going. And then it becomes a deep, dark obsession where you can't have enough stuff.
Okay.
My plans for the future, I think, are probably the same as they were when I was a kid. You know, I want to play great music, and I want to play with great musicians and great people. And I don't really care what the music is. I love jazz, of course, but I love so much more music. And I just I think the most important thing to me is that whatever I do as a musician, I just want to bring a high level of integrity, professionalism. I don't want to be the one who messes this up. So I want to be the one who's like, we can count on him to just show up and just nail it. And I think I've been able to accomplish a lot of that, but it's one thing to you have one experience and then you want 100 more. Then you do 100 experiences and then you want 1,000 more. So it constantly builds and it grows, and I just want to make music and play, and I've always felt it's so reciprocal. Even when I was a kid at Shakey's, watching my uncle play, listening to my grandma sing, or just in any other musical situation as a kid, the feeling that you get as an audience member when you hear great music is a great feeling. And that feeling is reciprocal because that energy transfers then to the musicians who want to continue playing great for you. And I just really, I want to feel like that 24 hours a day. I think we're in an interesting time right now in 2024 where music has become a disposable thing. People can just access whatever they want whenever they want it, and the investment of time and energy and thought, I think, is really beginning to lapse. And we see a lot of this not only just with the music creation itself, but with the practice and the want to develop a skill and to constantly get better at that skill. I don't know that we really see that in the large format that we saw, 20 years ago, 40 years ago, 60 years ago. If you go back and you listen to these guys in the early jazz age and coming through a big band, look at all the guys in these big bands and how amazing they were in the 30s and early 40s. It wasn't just about Count Basie or Duke Ellington or Glenn Miller or Tommy Dorsey. Those bands had killer players, and there was so many of them, and all the players were great. And now we listen to music where it's one person kind of creating things, and while they may be a very competent musician, what they're creating it for is somebody who is there to sell a product, not necessarily be a very skilled artist. And once that person's popularity has dwindled, then it's done and on to the next person who's going to sell this. And so I'd really like to see a lot more investment, not only by the music in itself, but it starts really with the players. Get more players, get better players, and there really are a lot of great players now. But I feel sometimes great players get pushed to the side because they got a big, strong voice in the matters, and sometimes that doesn't work well with the business side of things. So I would really love to see great music, great players, skilled singers, just people that are fantastic doing what they do, I'd like to see a return of that. And hopefully I can, on my way, on this journey, hopefully I can influence some people to do that, either through, good playing or maybe bad playing. Either way, if I can have a positive influence to make better music, then it was a job well done. if I can have a positive influence to make better music, then it was a job well done.